Welcome to the Long Range Pursuit Podcast, presented by Gunwerks, where we learn about and share long-range shooting techniques, science, and gear.
All right, welcome to Long Range Pursuit Podcast. I'm the host today, Garrett Wall, and I'm joined by an awesome guest, someone that doesn't need a lot of introduction, but we're going to get one out of him anyway, and that is good friend and customer Dan Cabela joining us from Texas. Dan, welcome and thanks for joining, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys having me on, and look forward to our conversation here. Not sure what we're going to talk about. I'm sure it involves some of your fine rifles, but you can lead me down the path of where we're going here.
Good.
It's great talking to you today.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about a number of things. First of all, let's introduce, obviously, most listeners and viewers. We have a video. We're videoing this as well as the audio portion, and so our viewers and listeners are going to recognize the name Dan Cabela, certainly. But why don't we start? We're going to talk a lot today about kind of our partnership and what we're working on these days with some of your conservation efforts, some of the activities, some of the hunts you're doing these days. But let's back up a ways to kind of Dan Cabela early days. And I'll tell you, in the spring, I was in Sidney, Nebraska with some shooting with some friends of ours, and I got to visit the old, what I think was the old headquarters on 13th Street, and they walked us around this very neat building, and I think I seen the office with Dick Cabela on there. The name is still on there, and I thought there's blueprints with the building still there, and what a neat building. But it got me thinking as I was preparing for this conversation, man, there's a lot of story. We don't have time for it all, but why don't you rewind us to Dan Cabela in some of those early days back in Sidney?
Yeah, so yeah, that store, I spent a lot of time in that store, and even though I'm, I'll call myself middle-aged, maybe I'm a little bit past that, but that store was actually there before I was born, but really, all the way through high school, that was where we did most of our work there in that old red brick building in downtown Sidney. So, the evolution of Cabela's, the company that my folks and my uncle built, started when I was a kid. It was nothing like it grew into. It was
Sure.
much smaller situation in a very small town, and a lot of hard work and a bit of luck helped that store to really grow.
That's something. What were some of your roles, Dan? What was your progression in the company?
Well, mostly what I did, of course, my parents were old school, so I pretty much started out pulling weeds and things like that. And
Good for you.
moving pallets and, eventually hit the retail floor and did a lot of stuff in retail. And then, as things grew, it became more on the PR side of things, when we were opening a lot of stores. And then I ended up in Texas and was still kind of just involved in the PR stuff. And now the new chapter is more along the lines now that we've sold the company of working with conservation with our foundation. So I'm the executive director of our foundation now, and I spend a large portion of my time working to spread the hunting and conservation message and trying to do good things for wildlife.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. And we're going to talk, that's what today's topic will be about, is kind of what your life after Cabela's and what you're doing and how we're kind of involved there. We'll chat a little bit about how you got introduced to Gunwerks and some of those stories. But if we don't mind staying backed up just a little bit, do I have my Cabela family history correct? Did she grow up, or was she born in Wyoming? Is there some Wyoming connection there?
Casper,
Wyoming. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's pretty awesome. Do you get to spend much time in our great state these days?
I haven't been spending too much time there recently, but I used to spend quite a lot of time there. I've done quite a bit of hunting there, and obviously her roots were there, so we spent a lot of time with family there back in the day, and love Wyoming. Awesome state.
Sure. Very cool. Very cool. Well, who'd have thought? I hear, I hear that a lot when you hear about the history of Cabela's of folks never really quite seeing how big that could turn into. I've heard stories about from some of those product managers how small some of those facilities were and the growth that occurred in such a small town of Sidney, Nebraska. And what a cool story. I mean, your family has influenced every hunter and fisherman and outdoors man or woman that's ever existed. Everybody's been to a Cabela's once in their life. And that's a pretty cool legacy for your family.
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, once again, not trying to age myself too much, but the company was started in 1961, and it was very small. Worked basically out of my folks' kitchen is how they started the company. And my mom and my dad, when my dad would get off work from his job working for my grandfather at his furniture store, they would come home and then put orders together in the kitchen. And I think they had one closet that they kept some stuff in there. And so, yeah, it was definitely a big change. I mean, all the way through it, and it for me, being a part of it, but also kind of watching that growth when it really started to take off, in the late '90s. I mean, I got to admit, even I was just like, wow, this is crazy. I mean, where are we going here?
Sure. Going back to that, what a cool story about doing it out of the kitchen. The inspiration for your folks, did they love the outdoors? Did they fall into it, or where did that? Did your dad talk about where that spark came from?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely had a strong belief in conservation and in hunting and fishing, and that was a major part of his life growing up and as a young man. But also, he had, the entrepreneur spirit, and I think, both those things coming together.
Sure.
Back then, there weren't a lot of options for hunting. I mean, some of the main big catalogs, Sears, JCPenney, they had a few pages where they were doing direct mail and things like that. And so the timing was good. I think he saw an opportunity. I think he saw that there was a need and worked very hard, and timing and luck, and they earned it. I will tell you that much. Yeah. There is no doubt about it. But they were also blessed with a lot of good things that happened along the way.
Oh, that is too cool of a story. I love hearing and learning about business and how that happened. That's pretty awesome. Well, okay, so fast forward to today, kind of your life post Cabela's, and that is, your love and passion for conservation. But let's talk a little bit about Hard Truths Conservation and what that is and how you got into that.
Well, it's interesting how we got into it. I've been talking about, how timing and luck kind of helped with Cabela's. Well, some of that also helped with the Hard Truths show. We were, and we'll probably get into this more later, but we were doing a big conservation project with lions in Africa, the foundation, and we were filming quite a lot of it. And at night we'd have these, fireside talks, and, everybody's asking, I'm doing a bunch of traveling, and people are saying, where have you been? And so we're going through the different hunts in the different parts of the world. And a couple of the guys that were there shooting just mentioned, have you ever thought about maybe doing this with all of the hunts that you're doing? I mean, you're already going to all these places. You're already doing conservation. Why are you not letting other people know what's going on in these areas? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm a hunter. I'm not really a TV host.
Yeah.
But the idea of spreading the message resonated with me, and I didn't know where it would end up or if it would amount to anything. So I was like, well, let's shoot a pilot, and which we actually shot a lot of it in Wyoming, but let's shoot a pilot and stick it out there and see what happens. And so we shot, a bison episode that was based on, basically ranching and great hunters historically through conservation that brought back the bison from the brink. And that show, COVID hit, unfortunately, and so I just kind of thought that was fun. We did
Sure.
a pilot. Now nothing's going to happen with it because
Sure.
we're in COVID.
Sure.
And then maybe 8 months down the road, I got a text from Ivan Carter, who at that time was one of the producers of the show, and it just said, "History's interested." And I looked at it, and I responded. I said, "Like History Channel?"
Like History Channel.
And he said, "Yes." I was like, "Wow, that was unexpected." I mean, but it ended up being a great platform for us, and it got us in front of a very large non-hunting group of viewers, and I think that's been beneficial for the show, and also to just getting the message out of the relevance of hunting in a modern world, and that really is what the show is about. Hunting is still extremely relevant, and we'd like to try to highlight the reasons why, and also in a very non-confrontational manner that lets the audience actually decide. Just put it out there. I mean, what do you think? What do you think of this? And that's kind of the way we do the show.
Wow. That's cool. Like the History Channel, he says, yeah, that escalated quickly to not one of these, smaller webisodes, but the History Channel. Very cool.
Yeah. And I'm not at liberty to really talk about it, but there is a pretty big announcement coming for a change for the program. So I'll keep you posted on that. I mean, we're talking often enough. You'll be one of the first to know.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Well, so if you get on the Hard Truths website and you look at you go through some of the episodes, you've been all over the place doing some of these efforts. I see the helicopter and putting some sheep on the mountain. We've got cheetah and lion and bison. And why don't you talk us through what have been some of the most impactful, events that you've done, and let's let the viewers listen to a little bit of that.
Well, I would say the most impactful, and this actually started before the show, but it has been in one of the episodes, was this 24 Lions initiative that we did in Africa, which still to date is the largest translocation of lions in history. And so we took 24 lions from different reserves in South Africa and flew them to Mozambique to Catata 11. And the backstory on that is Catata 11, Zambezi Delta Safaris actually is the operator there. And they've restored all the wildlife since the Civil War, have come back, and everything is flourishing there now. But the one thing that never returned was the apex predator, the lion.
Okay.
And the conditions are perfect there for lions because there's so much food, there's great cover. The operator is very good at managing the wildlife, and they've got great anti-poaching, a great anti-poaching group and program there. So we looked at it, and it's like, can we make this work? I mean, it's a hard thing, right? I mean, it's like, we're going to move 24 lions to an area, will this work? And it's like, well, with this group of people and the conditions in this area, if it's ever going to work, this is the right perfect storm for what we're doing here.
Sure.
And so that was back in 2018. And now, there's probably over 100 lions there now. So wow. It's done incredibly well. And it really has had, not a huge impact on the prey species. There's still tons of game there. There's 4 times the amount of lions, and everything seems to be right. It seems like the restoration of this apex predator has actually been wonderful for the wildlife and the conservation of Catata 11. So it's something we're very proud of. I'd love to do it again. It was super exciting. I don't know that we'll ever do anything quite as grand as that, but there's plenty of other projects that we're involved in. They're all important. We've primarily focused on Africa and North America, but we've done a lot of great things. And I mean, honestly, I'm addicted to hunting, but the conservation is more addictive. I mean, going out and catching sheep and moving lions on airplanes. I mean, you could never give me too much of that. I mean, it's incredible.
That is awesome. Logistically speaking, and red tape, I got to imagine that's quite the feat to work with, different country, going into South Africa, removing those lions. Does that, I mean, from time span, from concept, from ideation to getting that first lion moved, how long did something like that take?
The planning was about a year.
Okay.
And we still, I mean, even up to the moment when we loaded those lions onto the plane, I mean, literally the night before we got the permits.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a bit stressful, but it all came together. A lot of great people working together, a lot of very dedicated folks. I mean, it was a great team, and there's still a great team there. It's scaled back now because it's kind of down to us and the operator. But in the beginning, there were a lot of people involved, from veterinarians, biologists, different people working with the government, and it all came together. But not without worry, for sure.
Absolutely. What will future success of that herd or that pride look like in 5 years? Is it growing to a certain number? Or, what is that? How will you measure the success of that pride going forward?
Well, I think the ultimate measurement would be at some point, if the lions themselves could fund the conservation.
Sure.
I mean, I think that's ultimately the best scenario. I mean, but right now it's been privately funded.
Okay.
A lot of it by our foundation, but I think ultimately, if to take 1 or 2 lions off a year, you could fund the entire project. And I think that if we can get to that point, it will be that you will know you hit success when you hit that point.
100%. Wow, what a cool story. Well, that'll be pretty fun to watch. Where was the sheep? Where did that sheep introduction take place?
Okay, so I mean, there's there was the Cali Bighorns in Nevada, okay, and then there was the stone sheep in British Columbia.
Okay.
And both of those were not relocations. They were more science-based research projects, testing for Moby and other diseases, and testing the general health of the herds. So those were more along the lines of how are the sheep doing and what can we do to help them.
Very cool.
But yeah, I mean, also catching sheep. I mean, that's
as exciting as it gets.
That's pretty exciting stuff for sure.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Well, yeah, I look at someone like yourself that build an awesome, amazing career, love to hunt, and it's very admirable to see, you're addicted to hunting and to put the effort into what you're doing for the future of our sport and animals is pretty awesome to watch. And it's, very neat. So congratulations there. Very cool. What do you think, Dan? I wrote this question down about, and it's probably a long-winded answer, but what gives you the most concern about conservation, going forward? You mentioned there's a ton of projects, and I'm sure you have to be selective. There's probably 100 good causes out there, and you probably just don't have the time to do all 100. But what are the concerns you have about conservation? What are the things that maybe the public isn't talking about, or that are not aware about, those hurdles that we need to be involved with getting over to ensure some future conservation?
Well, I think the biggest problem, and it's not it's not an easy one to solve, is obviously the growing human population. I mean, that's for sure the biggest threat. and especially in marginal lands, here in the Western world, we've kind of changed the way that we do things, and so it's still an issue, but not an issue like in Asia and Africa and places like that where the population growth is just extreme. I think that's the biggest pressure on wildlife and wild places. But as populations grow, land use changes,
Okay.
And there's less space for wildlife. And that I don't have an answer for
Sure.
for that problem, but I think that is the biggest issue for wildlife, is just the expanding human population, and that comes with many other things, right? I mean, that comes with the illegal trade and poaching and all kinds of other things. But the nice thing about hunting is it kind of keeps a lot of that stuff in check.
Sure.
And it keeps the land use in a wildlife scenario. So as long as we still have hunting, we will still have these big places where animals live. I think if hunting were to go away, you're talking about something entirely different, and then land use would change, and also I think the same things I'm talking about. Obviously, poaching would go through the roof, and all the other bad things that come with that. So there are many issues for wildlife, but if I had to say what I think my biggest concern is, it's like, how do we protect these vast places where animals live, and how do we balance humans with nature? I mean, I think that that's the big thing. We have to live together. We've always lived together. It shouldn't be, even though we're in a modern world, we should still have the respect and responsibility to understand that they were here before us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, we could go on and on and on about this topic. We have a local situation in the state of Wyoming. It's Unit 7, the Unit 7 elk game unit. And it's a famed, a lot of folks know about Unit 7 here in Wyoming. But there's a ton of elk and there's a ton of private property. And it's becoming such that, there's way too many elk, and the Game and Fish is trying to figure out how to hit quota with these elk. As soon as people start shooting on public, they all end up on the private. And in our state, in the state of Wyoming, unlike Utah, I know you spent some time hunting in northern Utah. There's a cooperative wildlife management unit situation where landowners are able to sell tags. They donate a couple of those tags back to the state, but they're able to knock down the herd a little bit there. But we have this situation where there's just piles and piles of elk, and we're dealing with crop damage, and so now the Game and Fish is digging into their pocket to reimburse the landowners for all this crop damage that's taking place. And there's a new story every week around here about how in the world they're going to solve this problem about getting this herd objective, which I believe the last number I heard is about twice of what it should be, but their hands are so tied because we have so much private property there, until they come up with a situation where those landowners can get folks on there to hunt, whether they'll allow it or not. It's just, I don't know how they're going to solve that one anytime soon.
No, that sounds problematic for sure. And there's issues like that everywhere, right? And some places do it better than others, and I know that land rights in many states. It's good that there are strong land rights, but that does create problems at times when you have these sorts of issues.
Yeah. Boy, what an interesting, something we're watching closely around here, and we'll see what they ultimately end up do to solve that. But who else? So Hard Truths Conservation, that's what you're doing on the TV show. Who else is helping you in some of these conservation efforts? What does your team look like that's helping out with that?
As far as
any other family members helping, or is this kind of something?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
We've got 4 family members on the board, and they're involved in all of the decision making that that revolves around the foundation. I mean, and often participate, and have been in a few of the episodes as well. Before my mother passed away, she was in quite a few of them. She loved this stuff. I mean, you couldn't get her out in the field enough to do the conservation work. She really enjoyed it. The lions, the cheetahs, the sheep. She went on all those with us, and she was always so happy and really looked forward to those times. And it was awesome doing that stuff with her before she passed. It was really great. I mean, my father, unfortunately, he passed away before we started doing all this stuff. Shortly before we sold the company, and he was pretty much busy trying to do Cabelas.
Sure.
But once we sold, it freed up time to kind of get back. And the hunting and fishing world has been very good to us. And I think it's kind of a mission for us to try and do what we can to preserve the lifestyle that has been so important to us and has done so much with us, and also to support the wildlife, because without the wildlife we have nothing, right? I mean, it's over without the wildlife. So that is the key step to all of it.
Awesome. What a noble cause. That's so cool to hear. Well, let's talk a little bit about maybe your journey to Gunwerks, and how did you get introduced to us? And let's go back to that point.
Yeah, so that was a pretty big change for me. It was a while ago. I don't remember exactly how long. I would guess 10 years or so.
Yep.
Maybe a little less. But I was a guy that liked to shoot at 200 yards or less, and probably preferred 150 or so. Honestly, sure. with the tools that I had, and
sure,
and never really understood, until I came to you guys, that, I might be able to reach out a little bit further. So it definitely, coming to Gunwerks, I was introduced to you guys by a guy from WTA, which used to be our business, Cabela's Outdoor Adventures. And we came and saw Aaron and you guys there. I think it was Reno.
Mm-hmm.
And ordered my first gun from you guys, which was a 6.5. I think it was called the Mountain X.
That's right. Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
I've still got it.
Yeah.
I actually shot it yesterday. I'm taking it on a blacktail hunt. But yeah, that really opened my eyes, and it totally changed, especially the mountain hunting. I mean, totally changed it for me. I mean, I don't even know how I couldn't go back to the way I was doing it before. I mean, it's just so much better now, more confidence, less guessing, which is better for the animals and the hunters.
Sure.
I mean, it's a great product, and I totally believe in it, and we'll be using it as long as I'm shooting.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, you got into it. You rewind that 10-year. That calendar 10 years, and long range shooting and that distance shooting still isn't quite mainstream, right? It's popular, and there's a number of gun builders, but it's still not quite fully accepted by everybody. Your big, some of your big factory rifle producers are, they're kind of shunning the concept, the ethical portion of that. And as you quickly found out, you at 500 yards with that Mountain X, you're as confident, right, in the right conditions, making sure we're shooting in a wind that we're comfortable with, but you're every bit as lethal at 500 yards as you ever were at 200 yards off some sticks or in some kind of hurried situation. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Better off, actually, a lot better off. And honestly, I mean, even with the long range stuff that you guys produce, I still try to get as close as I can.
Sure.
But to be able to reach out and shoot well reaching out. Like I said, back in the day, if I was taking long shots, there was a lot of guessing going on.
Sure.
Which, I mean, if you want to talk about ethics, I mean, I'm not sure that's right either.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. Our business, we've built our business on the concept of educating, individuals on how to make that, building a system, combining that with the education to make that one shot, as you've seen in your career. We get one shot, and anybody can get any rifle on paper in 2 or 3 shots. That's not an accomplishment. Your oldest, dustiest 30-06 in the safe will do that. But what we're doing for that one shot, that one moment, that one instance that you have, that you can put that bullet on target, perfectly. And so we've attempted to build our business on that entire concept. But have you had any luck, being an ambassador of sorts, or showing, that rifle off to other folks in camp? You've traveled the world as much as anybody. Have you made any believers out there along the way?
Oh yeah, I absolutely. And I mean, that's the other thing I've noticed over 10 years is I see your guns in a lot more of those camps than I did 10 years ago. So I think there's plenty of believers out there, especially the North America stuff. I mean, it's the last camp I was in, which was not very long ago. End of September, I was hunting mountain caribou, and I think there were 2 other guys. It was a group of 6 guys, and 3 of us had Gunwerks rifles. So, I think it's become a pretty well known thing for the guys that are getting up there and doing that kind of stuff.
Sure. I had a good friend the other day was telling me that he was doing his desert sheep. So he was through one of the more popular airports in Mexico. I forget which one it was, but anyway, there was about 7 or 8 rifles there, and half of them had our sticker on them. And he snapped and sent me a picture and said, "Hey, I used to know exactly which one was my gun. Now I got to wait around and sift through a little bit." And that was we take that as a compliment that we're getting out there a little bit more. But any fond memories or kind of favorite memories about one of your rifles out in the field, of maybe a shot or something that wouldn't have happened with your prior equipment?
There's been quite a few of those, actually. I'm trying to think. A couple of trips that I did to Mongolia. Everything was a long shot, and I had the 30 Nosler with me, the Magnus, and on both of those trips, and it performed really, really well. I think between the 2 trips, we did 3 Argalis and 2 Ibex, Gazelle, Merle Stag, and everything was a bit out there.
Okay, so you guys did some cleanup on that trip.
Yeah, but it all went great. Everything, the gun performed great, and I actually love that gun. I'm surprised that I haven't worn the barrel out on it. But
I know, and I think our marketing team's going to be probably trying to persuade you to get you to upgrade a little bit into some.
Yeah, I think that's going on.
Well, don't give in. Stay strong.
I'm sure I'll probably be even more impressed with the new stuff.
Have you ever had any guides get out there and try and throttle you a little bit? Have you ever had to help encourage them about your abilities to shoot a little farther than, the couple 100 yards they like to get us all into?
Not too much, because I think they know the product, right? I mean, when they see it, they're probably happy, actually, because then
Sure. A little relieved.
Yeah, a little relieved. Maybe we won't blow a few stocks here, and we can get this done from a little bit further out, but still comfortable. Like I said, if I can get to 300 yards, I'm going to get to 300 yards.
Yep.
That's just the way it's going to be. But if you can't, then you know you got something that'll help you get that extra yardage.
100%. We've had on our marketing material and tagline and trade show booths for the longest time 1,000 yards out of the box, and a lot of people recognize that, and I'll oftentimes get a little kickback from folks, and they'll come into the booth or they'll call and say 1,000 yard, it's ridiculous. You shouldn't be shooting at animals. You shouldn't be, and that's everybody's decision, and I respect everybody's decision to make that. But and I think you'll back me up on this. If you'll practice out at 1,000 yards, and if you'll at your range, and if you will get extremely proficient on a piece of steel at those distances, in a tricky wind, in a headwind that's going back and forth from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and you'll get very dialed in there. Then when you have to get to 625 yards or 575 yards, it's an absolute chip shot. So we love seeing guys get as close as they can. But if you will practice at that kind of range, I mean, the hoop is just that big when you get super close. It's a done deal. And I wish that was a message that everybody could glean from that is, practicing at those distances is a very, very good use of your time. Yeah.
My biggest issue is at 1,000 yards, it's not the rifle, it's if I can see.
Sure. Arrow and the Indian, those are both things that have to be on par, and that's a fair point. But well, Dan, you guys came to us. We've had a good relationship for a long time, but we got more involved over this last year. And let's talk briefly as we wrap up here about you coming to Gunwerks and seeing some value in partnering up with us and helping kind of further this hard truths conservation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, like most guys that are out doing this stuff, I've got my core stuff, and you guys are at the center of that. I mean, without that tool, you can't do much. So for me, and us, kind of locking arms, it's a huge deal for me, and it's a big deal for our foundation too, because it's something that we believe in. We believe in the product. We know it's great, and I think when we're out filming these things, I mean, it's important that things go well, and the majority of the time that's what happens with the Gunwerks products.
That's pretty awesome. No, we certainly appreciate that. As you talk about that and taking our product and then the future of our products and what they can do for you, I've been thinking a little bit. There's a number of states are heightening their awareness around our equipment and what it's capable of doing, and they're calling them kind of technology committees. So I think Utah a couple of years ago got theirs put together, and they put a focus group together of landowners, outfitters, manufacturers of our products, and just a number of folks to make up this focus group and talk about where technology belongs, in the outdoors. I saw a solicitation not 3 weeks ago about Idaho trying to form their committee as well. And so it feels like all the states out west, New Mexico last year, they got rid of the magnified or the scopes with magnification. So on a muzzleloader, Utah did the same thing. They bounced back and forth a little bit. So right now in the states of New Mexico and Utah, you are restricted to an open sight or a peep sight or a 1-power, for example. What do you think about it? It's quite the topic. Depending on who you ask, you get a number of different reactions. And we're flattered that a lot of folks think that, it's the rifles that are responsible for. But if you look at our technology in general, like Onyx maps and the quality of the optics and how light our gear has become, we can glass so much further. The backpacking, the nutrients that we take, the meal planning, the programming that goes into our technology, and Garmin allowing us to communicate and stay out and map our way around the backcountry. Like our technology today, as it sits in 2024, is just, it's so much farther ahead than it was. And I know it's a sum of all those things that are making us more successful in the field. But you have any take or any stance on any of that topic?
Well, I mean, I personally enjoy the technology. I think it's great. I think it's enhanced my experience and my performance on many levels. Just like you said, there's many different things. Everything from your in reach to your Gunwerks gun to yeah. It's a changing world.
Yeah.
But I also respect the guys that go out and they want to shoot a muzzleloader with open sights, or they want to shoot a longbow. I mean, my big thing is just I want more people out there doing it. So. And I want us to all kind of be united. The more of us that are out there doing it, everybody can do it their own way and enjoy the way they do it. And let's all support each other, whether we want to do it in the most basic way and chuck a spear or shoot a slingshot or shoot a Gunwerks rifle. I mean,
no, that's well said. There's probably room for primitive weapons and more sophisticated. As you know, in some of our optics systems, we're big into the technology side of those things and calculating ballistic solutions. And, we've got that new scope now that we're piping that information into a heads-up display. And so we're on the radar of a number of these states. And as you know, Aaron had his passion and drive for really leading the industry and leading the market in some of those things. I think will always be probably a group that's looked at as are we pushing the envelope too far? And that's fine. We welcome that magnifying glass looking at what we're doing, and there's a lot of neat opportunity in our space, and it's pretty fun to combine that with furthering the sport, which is exactly what you're doing, and providing these now 100 lions that were zero, and that I don't know. You combine those couple things, and it gets pretty neat about what's on the horizon for us.
Oh yeah, I think I think it's very positive going forward, and I think that at least for me personally, in the last couple of years, I've seen a shift. Just even in public opinion, I think awareness is the key, right? I mean, I think to make people aware of how important it is that what we do for wildlife. I mean, you just have to think what happens if it goes away, right? I mean, that's the question. And if you could communicate that to people, I think they understand it a lot better. I mean, without hunting, you're going to lose vast tracts of land. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That there are systems put in place, great systems in the United States. Comparatively to the rest of the world, but there are systems everywhere. There are ways that they do. In Pakistan, they've got community-based conservation that has brought all these animals back. They put value on the animals, and that money funnels back into the villages, and the people want to keep them there. They used to poach them out. But there's different models for different places, and I think if we're all looking to keep these wild spaces and these wild animals with us, we have to find the right solution for the right place. But they're there.
No, that's well said. And you're right. And I think sometimes we think, oh, well, that's never going to happen. The mountain lion is on the ballot right now down in Colorado. That's being voted on as we speak. And it's scary how close we are to probably, losing some of those things. For us in our state, the grizzly bear management, the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, grizzly bear is always under hot debate about trying to get those turned back over to our state for management and what we could do there. And boy, there's just everywhere you turn, there's an opportunity of maybe an infringement on some of those things that you're right. If they went the other direction, would not be good for any of us.
Yeah, and it would be nice if we'd get back to just following the science.
Sure.
I mean, there are tools. They've always been available that to manage wildlife. I mean, let's follow the science. Let's not let politics and opinions manage our wildlife. I think that becomes very problematic, and Colorado is the perfect example.
My goodness, I couldn't take you into I could guarantee you that we could find 2 grizzly bears in an afternoon if you came up here. I guarantee you we could find 2. We wouldn't have to look very far, and I think they're off by about 50% was kind of the last number on their numbers. And it's crazy how how skewed some of that stuff is, and we'll see. It's interesting times that we're in, but it highlights the importance of what you're doing, what the Cabela family is doing, what Hard Truth Conservation is trying to show the world. I appreciated what you said about getting in front of folks that maybe don't understand our sport or our way of life, and if done in a very tactful and polite and respectful manner, man, what a platform you have to kind of help carry us forward, and that's pretty cool. We're very honored and proud to be a part of that.
No, and we're honored that you guys are. I'm really excited going forward. You know what we can do together. So it's going to be a great partnership, and we'll keep preaching the hard truths out there, and I think that hopefully we'll win some people over.
No, that's pretty awesome. Dan, you're a very busy guy, so I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us today and our viewers. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Looking forward to kind of following more of Hard Truths. I'm looking forward to this announcement that you have coming. We probably won't cross paths again until the trade shows, but let's make sure we get to spend a little time there. But
what do you mean? I'm coming to look at 2 grizzly bears. I thought.
Okay, well, there we go. Well, we'll catch up then when you come out. But again, please pass on to the team and the Cabela's family, good luck and keep doing your thing. And we look forward to catching up down the road, Dan. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
If you like what you're hearing here, please take a second and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. We appreciate your feedback and suggestions for topics you'd like discussed or questions you want answered on the podcast. You can reach out on Facebook or Instagram or send us an email to podcast@gunwerks.com. Also, be sure and check out our full offering of long-range gear at gunwerks.com. Use promo code LRP for free shipping on any order.